So it is about to be, as I said, a very interesting episode. We have a guest in studio, and it is the end of August. And so we're about to be heading back to school very, very soon. I know my teacher friends, my teacher colleagues are saying, oh my God, summer is over. It's back to the hustle and bustle of work. And I know the students, the children, young people are also gearing up to return to school and maybe dreading it, but gearing up to return to school as well. So this morning, we're actually going to focus a little bit on these young people that are anticipating or dreading the back to school time. So that is what we're going to be focusing on, and their nutrition. This morning, as I said, we do have a guest in studio. And with us this morning is Dr. Leandy Bertrand, and she is a nutritionist. And she's going to be talking to us this morning about those young people, those children of yours, and their nutrition, especially as they are heading back to school. Dr. Bertrand, good morning to you.
Good morning, Trudy.
Yes, Dr. Bertrand, it is a pleasure to have you on Health Vibes.
Thank you.
It is the first time that you have been on the show. I know the listeners maybe want to know a bit about who is with me in studio,
Okay.
who is Dr. Bertrand, and what exactly is it that she does. So let our listeners know a little bit about who Dr. Bertrand is.
Okay. As Trudy said, my name is Leandy Bertrand. I am a nutritionist. So I'm called Dr. Bertrand, but what that really means is that I have a PhD in nutrition. I'm not a medical doctor.
Okay.
I'm from Maho originally, and I was born and raised by two farmers, so that's where my relationship with food initiated, I would say.
Oh,
I went to the Isaiah Thomas Secondary School. I did agriculture in college, actually. That's again continuing my food affiliation.
yeah.
But at some point along that path, I realized, there is a gap in terms of nutrition access, nutrition specialist access in Dominica. So it changed from there on, and I pursued studies, bachelor's, master's, and PhD in nutrition.
Ah, interesting. So a background in, well, two farmers raised you. You did agriculture, and then you said to yourself, nutrition is where it is.
Way forward.
Yeah, it's a field that I would say is not very, very popular. There are not many nutritionists on island
No.
that I know of, but it is an area that people talk about so widely and that is so important that I am very happy that you are with us and you decided to pursue studies in that area so that you can help with, a lot of what is going on here in terms of nutrition, education, and just knowing how to be healthy through food.
Right.
So I wanted to get the ball rolling. We're talking about young people. We're talking about children. Oftentimes, when we start thinking about proper eating, we are already facing some sort of health concern, oftentimes. So when you hear people talking about eating properly or eating well, it might be because there is something that they're trying to prevent or they're trying to remedy already. It might be a weight issue or, a high blood pressure issue. It might be a high blood sugar issue. But in the youth, what is the importance of proper nutrition for young people?
Okay. Before I begin, I just want to say that for those who are listening, I'm not just targeting the youth today with the information that I'm sharing. I'm hoping that parents are listening as well,
Right,
because
right,
we are
right.
speaking about youth, and to a great extent, their eating patterns, the provision, the access to food is, based on their parentage and, the access of food at home, other environments as well. But I hope parents are listening. So the question again was,
Why
why do
important?
young
Yes.
people need to eat? Well, there are several factors that would influence the reason why young people need to eat. We are typically born to, healthy bodies. For example, when we are born, from like birth to 8 months old, we are full with iron stores. All our vitamins are well, on par. But as we go along that childhood period, it is lost. So that's one reason why, adequate, nutrition is important during childhood. Secondly, as related, the growth. It's a growth period where, there's a lot of changes. The bones are growing, the muscles are growing, the brain is developing. A person's brain is not developed until their mid-20s. So to, I guess, fuel all that, again, a child needs all that. Again, intelligence, performance at school, all that is influenced by nutrition. Again, that's another reason why children need to be, following healthy eating patterns. How they perform in school can be a reflection of how healthy they eat. Right. So these are just some of the reasons, and I guess some others will come up as we go along.
Right. So proper growth and development, and of course, intellectual ability, brain development. All of these are things we're trying to make sure is adequate or efficient in our growing children.
Disease prevention, I forgot that.
Yes, disease prevention, right? And so we have to focus on what it is that they are eating.
Right.
Now we are in the Caribbean, we're in Dominica, and our culture plays a big role in what we eat.
Yes.
What we feed our children often is just what has been culturally passed down to us as this is what you do, and also this is what is available, this is what is best to do. So if you are a new parent, you have a newborn, you have breastfed the newborn, you're moving now into solid foods, what should you be thinking in that stage? So I'm going to take it for stages. Yes, I'm going to take it for stages. Okay.
But let's begin with introduction to solid foods. What should we be thinking? We'll be thinking about what nutrients are of importance at that stage.
Okay.
Right? We need to think that, at that stage, again, iron becomes important because iron is relevant for growth. Calcium becomes important because calcium, again, for bones, teeth. Vitamin D becomes important.
Okay.
So, are we going to think of, is a child requiring supplements? Is a child requiring foods that are high in vitamin D? But again, what foods should we focus on to ensure that the child meets those essential nutrients at that point? Other things we have to think of is the kind of environment our child is exposed to at that stage, because at that stage, a child is moving often from home into, a daycare center.
Yes.
So who's providing food? Are you sending the food to the daycare? Is the daycare center providing the food? So again, what conversations need to be had with those providing food outside of the home? What policies are in place, in terms of what should be fed to children when they are, within these settings? Another thing you want to be you want to be thinking of is variety. How much variety you expose a child to at that stage, so that they could begin to accept foods. They don't have restrictive and avoidance behavior. The texture, because children refuse food, the texture of food. So that stage where they're moving from, breastfeeding onto solids, it's, a lot to think of.
And I want to just tease this in here. A lot of people, there are baby foods that you can buy. So people buy, there are baby foods that you can purchase. And then some people say, no, you don't need to buy those, those foods. You can make things for your babies. You can crush this, you can crush that. What is your advice typically in that regard? Those store-bought foods as compared to, things that you would make yourself.
And I agree with those people. Certainly, you can make those things yourself. Take, for example, and by the way, I am at that stage, right? I have a 3-year-old.
Okay.
And some things I do buy because my son, Yakim, he refuses a lot of things. So if I could get it in a processed, healthier form, I do purchase it.
Okay.
Like apple puree, for example. He refused when he eats apple, he chews it and he throw it away, or he may just not eat it at all. But when I buy it in the tube, which is what you're talking about, he may just drink the tube and be like, okay, I have
He
my
will
apple.
take it in.
But again, when we introduce those processed foods, there are some things we're inviting. Whereas I may choose to puree the apple at home, I need time. So do parents typically have that time? And on the other hand, there is convenience, so it's buying the item. There is also the factor of like introduction of other things that you don't want to introduce into your home. So for example, using the same apple puree example, there is a sugar, there is apple. If you puree an apple, you do taste or perceive sweetness, but in the apple puree there is added sugar. So a lot of things come into play. It's a lot of things that are going to impact your decision. Do you have the right equipment at home? Right? It's not something as simple. Often it's not something as simple as crushing with a fork. If you have food processors at home, because the fork processing and a food processor processing the
Two different
two
textures.
different textures we're dealing with, and texture is something that affects children acceptance of food. So yes, I would recommend doing it at home, doing it from scratch, because you get to be in control, but that also requires information as well.
Right.
So the family nurse practitioners at the healthcare centers, even they are able to provide information in this regard as well. So yes, do it at home. If you're going to be purchasing it, also try to get in contact with a nutritionist. We do have nutritionists on island, and get the right information as to which ones might be right. On that regard, I would like to say something that's being developed by, and I would like to give credit to Dr. Favoria Drago. There is an initiative that we are currently working on. It's called Red Hat Green Check. So in the future, what we're trying to do is to label food in the supermarkets.
Okay.
So it would help parents understand, can I choose this? Is it right for my child? Is it healthy? Right? So again, there are restrictions with regard to getting foods prepared from scratch at home, and then we are quick to buy it from the supermarket. So that initiative, the Red Hat Green Check, will help you just go shopping and understand there is a green check here, there is a red hat here. I am able to buy it because the nutritionist has okayed that particular item. Right?
Okay, so it's a Red Hat
Green Check initiative.
Okay.
And it's in the planning stages.
Okay.
So it's really to help people select food in the food environment.
Okay.
In terms of its healthfulness.
Okay.
Yes.
So let us get back to the really little people. We spoke about the newborn, well, not the newborns, but babies being introduced to food, the impact of texture on what they may accept or not. Us being able to make things at home often being better, but then the aspect of convenience also coming into play with some of the things that we may buy. Let's talk about, we're growing up now, we're in the toddler phase, and a lot of people may introduce, snacks, store-bought snacks, and that's where a lot of people start talking about too, high sugar, high fat foods that are very trendy for children. What are you looking out for as a parent now that the variety is increasing then in what the child can eat? What are you looking out for to make sure that you are nutritionally stable in what you are giving your child or what you are allowing your child to have?
As a parent, what you need to look out for, again, you want to look out for adequate protein. And there are plant proteins, there are animal proteins. Preferably, if you could introduce the child and, their digestive system is more capable of handling proteins and fiber, which I'll get to next. But you want to look out for protein because, again, they are developing, their cells are developing, and protein is one of the key macronutrients or nutrients that they would require. So you want to ensure that they have access to high protein foods. Again, that could look like peas and beans. That could look like chicken. But preferably, as a nutritionist, I suggest, plant-based food or fish, actually.
Okay.
We do suggest chicken, but, you'd have to remove the skin from the chicken in terms of introducing protein foods. And you would actually have to look for healthy fats as well.
Okay.
because that's the point where you are competing with the child's, I guess, liking or preference for fatty foods. But yes, we demonize fatty foods, but what you want to focus on is introducing the child or having the child get access to healthy fats. So that's when you could actually introduce things like the cod liver oil, actually.
Okay.
Or on the other hand, you could have, a diet where fish is the main type of animal meat, because the fish oils are healthy. You could introduce a child to nuts. That's if it's nuts as the whole nut, you need to supervise that consumption, or some sort of homemade snack where you crush or process the nuts so they have
Okay.
access to that healthy fat. Right? Other things in terms of healthy fat, are you going to introduce things like soybeans or soy milk to the child? But that healthy fat needs to be part of the child intake, definitely at that toddler stage.
Okay.
Hormonal development at this stage, brain again development. So all this is relevant in terms of the role that this healthy fat will play. Another nutrient you want to pay attention to is how much fiber you are giving that child. And fiber is really the component of food that cannot be digested, right? So we get fiber in high amounts in things like vegetables, in things like peas and beans. So again, peas and beans come up. It's one of my go-tos for children. Peas and beans and fruits. Again, why do they need it? It's at that stage where you get issues of constipation. It's at that stage where you get issues of being hungry so often, or not being hungry. And fiber has a way of, I guess, managing that. So the focus on fiber is how you're going to introduce it. Are you going to introduce it through vegetables, peas and beans, and more fruits? So all these need to be incorporated in the things that you would be giving the child. So just to recap what I said, the mineral, the vitamins or the nutrients of importance would be fiber, fish oils, which is known as omega-3, omegas, or protein, and the proteins, I would say. So these are the things you would need to focus on. And the thing with purchasing things from the food environment, like in a store, you hardly ever is able to pick an item where all these three are combined. So you have a product, you pick a product and you get adequate fiber, you get adequate, for a meal, you get adequate fiber, adequate protein, and adequate fish oils. But if you make something from scratch at home, then you get to blend and merge and do things
Yes,
from
mix up.
scratch and, influence intake.
Okay.
That's why, but again, the idea of convenience comes in. So we buy these things and, we buy these things from the supermarket and it just replaces what is supposed to be had by the child.
Okay. Yeah, and it's a constant battle, the battle between convenience and a proper nutrition, and it would be nice if we get that sweet spot where we can, sometimes there's the convenient aspect, but sometimes there's the homemade sort of aspect. And I guess proper planning and advanced planning
Certainly.
helps with that. You're speaking here, and it's so interesting. You mentioned healthy fats for these young children. You mentioned the fiber. You mentioned the protein, healthy protein. I'm thinking of aversions that children have to foods, a lot falling in those groups that you've just mentioned, like fiber, fruits and vegetables. A lot of children have aversions to fruits and vegetables. Some of the healthy fats as well. How do parents navigate these aversions? Or is it the fault of the parent that the child develops an aversion in the first place? How does that work?
I would blame no parent when a child, again, you're not the only one raising the child. At this point, the child is in different environments. They are, the nanny's home, they are at grandma home, where often they get some spoilings.
The grandparents.
It's not just you, although repetitive exposure at home could lead to that liking. So if the repetitive exposure is leading towards the unhealthier foods, then yes, in that regard, I could blame the parent. But there are ways, and the thing is, we are dealing with children. So there's evidence in these things I'm going to say, and it may or may not work. Right? But just things that have been proven to work for populations, but this may not mean that it may work for every child. But things are simple as introducing the child to helping in the kitchen.
Okay.
So the child has food aversion. So for example, the child doesn't like dashing, for example. You have the child see what the dashing, peeling and preparing. And if you're going to be, well, the dashing is scratching. So maybe the point of including the child in the dashing preparation would be where you have them chop it up after it is boiled or something. So they, assisting in that preparation would result in the accepting more. That is something
Okay.
that could help, reduce aversions or food restrictions, I would say, or food disorders. Another thing is to eat as a family on the
Okay.
table. There is evidence also that when children sit on the table and eat, they mimic, the acceptance of food by the parents, their siblings, whoever is at the table, grandparents, dads. When they do sit and eat at the table as well, they accept food more because of food patterning. There's also things that could, also other factors that could affect avoidance as well. It relates to more biological things in terms of how hungry is that child. If every minute the child is exposed to some sort of food, a biscuit or something, you know what I mean? And they lack that hunger, they are more likely to refuse what they are supposed to be eating. So allow the child to get hungry.
Okay.
Right? And when we allow the child to get hungry, there is also, biological events that happen in terms of hormonal enzymatic secretions, hormonal secretions that that could help in accepting food more. So there are other factors I would like to consider as well in terms of acceptance of food. In terms of variety, try to introduce the child to a variety of food as often as possible. Even if the child refuses the food, still bring it in some other, method, still bring it in some other dish, still bring in some other environment. Because whereas a child might refuse a carrot at home on the table, Creole in the park, that child might accept that carrot. You get my point? So keep on introducing the child to the foods that you're trying to introduce as well. What else can I think of?
But that point about let the child get hungry, that is such an interesting concept. And I say interesting for want of a better word, actually. But a lot of people, that circumstance of hunger is something that they want to avoid by all means possible. So the children, you go into church, they have snacks with them. You go into any place or at any time, there's always some sort of food item so that the child doesn't get hungry. And there's also the concept, I guess, of people thinking if hunger being equated in some way to lack of resources and my child has to have everything and in abundance. So I do observe a lot of parenting styles evolve in a sort of way of pushing a lot of food, yes.
Yeah.
Because it's
what's the benefit of it though?
I see it, and I so you mentioning if the child is never hungry, they are going to be very picky in terms of those aversions that we just spoke of. And so I feel that hunger, being hungry is very interesting. I guess in the old time people would say like I've heard things like you eat it or you sit down by it. So when it's that I give you, you either eat it or you sit down by it, as if to say, what it is that I'm preparing at home, you're going to eat it. But now I feel like the popular thing is that option of choice and multiple often feeding very often. And so that leads me to the question about frequency of meals we're talking for children. So we're still on the young children. Young ones. How frequently should they be fed?
Frequency is a matter of, again, are they hungry?
Okay.
So it's intuitive.
So it's
feeding,
dependent.
right? And yes, we should allow a child to get hungry
Okay.
without just, at this stage, you could even release release the desire to always ask and let the child ask you.
Okay.
But to get to the question we're talking about, what was it again?
The whole
Whole frequency, yeah.
yes.
The frequency is well, there frequency could be a matter of, there is the three meals, the breakfast,
Lunch,
the lunch,
dinner.
the dinner, and then that the huge gap between lunch and dinner, then the child is offered some sort of snack. But that is the beginning. That's the standard. But that may not necessarily work with the child, because if, for example, if you have a child that's very physically active,
Okay.
physical activity, I guess, initiates hunger, right? So that may not work for the child who's very physically active. That standard breakfast, lunch, dinner. Another thing that you may have to look at is, what is the component of the food that you're giving the child. If the child's food is, high in starches, where starches basically just break down into glucose over a 2-hour period, then that child is going to be hungry after 2 hours after giving something like cornflakes, for example. But if the child has a meal where you have proteins and you have fiber again involved in that meal, then there's a longer period needed for feeding. You're talking about 3 to 4 hours after that previous meal. And why? Because proteins take time to digest.
Okay.
Any protein, again, and in that form, it would look like something like peas and beans, or maybe just some fish or a piece of chicken. It takes about 3 hours for protein to digest. So if we are still digesting, we don't necessarily stimulate that hunger. We don't necessarily stimulate that desire to eat. So it depends on, again, on top of that, meal structure. Is the child hungry? What was fed for that previous meal? That will determine if that child needs to be fed 2 hours later, or 3 hours later, or 4 hours later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now
And again, physical activity.
Physical activity. We have graduated through, babies, toddlers, young children. What about our teenagers? Now we're moving into the teenage age. So our young people who may be at high school level, 13, 14, 15, teenage age. And at that point, of course, they have the ability to be buying their stuff when they go to school. They have more freedom then by the time they are at teenage age. But as a parent, the same question I asked for the other age categories. What is important for you to prioritize in terms of their nutrition at the teenage stage of their life, teenage ages?
In terms of nutrient requirements for teenage age, the iron requirements comes in again, because that's when a young girl she have initiated menstruation, so she's losing the blood on a monthly. Her hips are developing, her body is developing, so she's going to need more iron.
Okay.
And iron, again, it comes from peas and beans. Iron comes from vegetables. Iron comes from grains, and grains, when we talk about grains, we're talking about things like cornmeal, or even the wheat grain itself is an iron source. So the child is definitely going to need iron at that stage. Also, for boys, they are developing as well, more muscle, their voice boxes. This is a stage of development where they too are going to need iron. Protein, again, because of the growth that they are going through. It's a very developmental stage in terms of the change that can happen between, like, for example, from like 9, 10 to like about 19. Protein is going to be, because protein is the growth, nutrient, really. Again, fiber. It always comes down to protein and fiber often. Where the fiber comes into play is with regards to satiation. Fiber has a way of giving that sense of, okay, I've eaten enough, I don't need to be eating. And it becomes important, because that's when the child is more mindful of body image and how much quantity, portions. So yes, we have to pay attention to portion, but what are the components of what you feed the child? Fiber becomes important. So fiber in the form of vegetables, fiber in the form of fruits, fiber in the form of peas and beans, nuts. So fiber becomes important as well. Another thing that is often disregarded is, I wouldn't say disregarded, but not paid enough attention as it needs to, is vitamin D. Teenagers do not get the sunlight that the past or teenagers of the past used to
Used
get.
to get.
So we
Uh-huh.
might think that, okay, they're out in the sun, they used to get sunlight, but yes, they're not getting that vitamin D from the sunlight because do you see teenagers when you're walking around?
No.
So yes, so they're either inside on their phones or on the laptop or something that would keep them out from that exposure to sunlight. So that vitamin D becomes important.
Okay.
Again, where do we get that vitamin D? We can get vitamin D from fish oils. We could get vitamin D from nuts, right? And vitamin D is not a food, really. It's not a vitamin that is, you can get it in many food sources. So that's why often, if a doctor or a nutritionist recommend vitamin D supplementation for a teenager, I have no, objections against that, because their food restrictions, their disorders, their exposure to sunlight, often at that age, it becomes that vitamin D becomes important for in the conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you started an important area that I did want to go into, which is the supplements.
Okay.
Yes, so the supplements that may be advised for children. You just mentioned vitamin D, and you're not being opposed to it being, given as a supplement if a physician recommends. But are there other supplements, any other supplements that a parent should just automatically be thinking of giving their children, or is it very specific to need? So I'm talking about, your vitamins, your multivitamins that are often given to children. You did mention earlier the cod liver oil, and there are many cod liver oil products. So are these supplements mandatory? Is it by choice? Is it if there's a specific problem that you are observing? How do we approach giving children supplements?
To a great extent, supplement use should be approved by a physician or a nutritionist, because that child has to go through some biological assessment, some sort of test, some sort of determination that you're lacking that particular thing, and only a doctor or a nutritionist can determine that.
Okay.
Right. So whereas we might just be like, oh, you give that child iron, or give that child this. Some become obvious, because when we think about the vitamin D, for example, it's quite obvious. I don't think a child has to go through some sort of assessment to know that the average teenager is not, the average person is not getting the vitamin D that they require. And there's so much functions happening in the body that's using up the stores, right? So it's something that should be, initiated with a discussion or visit to your doctor or your nutritionist or your dietitian. But in terms of supplement use, again, things like omega-3, which is like the
fish oils.
The fish oils, it can be an obvious one that I would say you could give without a doctor's initial visit, because again, thinking of what we eat, our cultural patterns, we're not getting adequate omega-3 or polyunsaturated fatty acids at all. Right? Because where do these things come from? And I go beyond fish oil. I'm talking about the healthy oils that come from nuts, the healthy oils that come from, fish, the healthy oils that come from, things like avocado, which is in season. So are we seeing these things being eaten? No.
Right.
So we can definitely say, like, just an educated view on it, and my experience, that things like fish oils and vitamin D, I would believe that, we could initiate it without a doctor's visit. But other things, like I'm hearing things about creatinine, which is often used for athletes, the other protein shakes, other protein supplements that are used in protein shakes, other things like vitamin B12. You can't just go ahead and give that to a child or a teenager, because these things, our food supplies are abundant in protein and abundant in vitamin B.
Okay.
So you would have to be diagnosed with some sort of condition that is affecting the absorption or affecting the way your body uses these supplements. But again, it has to be initiated with conversation with your medical providers.
What about vitamin C? So a lot of people for an immune boost, they will say, and particularly we're talking children, children always come home with something because they in the school setting where the viruses are easily passed on from one to the other. So a lot of people will say the child needs an immune boost. So they need to get a vitamin C supplement or vitamin C yes, they need to be supplemented with vitamin C. What is your take on that
Maybe
one?
you will agree with me that these things, they are often initiated at the event. So the child has a cold, so you feel like, okay, I'm going to give some vitamin C supplement or something. I will have you know that, and the parents listening, people listening, there is very little impact of that vitamin C supplement that you're using at this point of attack. Vitamin C is a nutrient that is, it is stored. It is something that the stores need to be built and then released and used up, not on the point of, okay, I have a cold today, I'm going to take some I'm going to drink some orange juice, or I'm going to drink some vitamin C supplement and some water. It will do nothing for you. It will only help build your stores that will help your immunity later on,
But not at
because
that
that's
time.
not the way vitamin C works. But again, culture would have it that you don't feel well, you just take some you have a cold, you take some vitamin C supplement, and that happened a lot during COVID.
Yes,
And,
yes, yes.
we think that at the sight of a cold or at being attacked by the cold right away, that vitamin C is going to impact. No, it doesn't.
Okay. All right. So you've gotten the myth buster right here.
So it's a matter of eating for prevention.
Okay.
So you eat meals that are high in vitamin C, and it's not often fruits. The fruit is the go-to. Things like parsley, things like bell peppers, they are also high in vitamin C, but we like to go to fruits and
Okay.
yeah.
I have never heard that
Yeah.
about parsley and bell peppers.
Yeah.
So they are good sources of vitamin C. Okay. Yeah, I always automatically think of the oranges, limes, the citrus fruits, but not of vegetables like that. Okay, so that's a very interesting point. All right, let's take a break. We're on this morning with nutritionist Dr. Bertrand. That is, if you're just joining us, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to spin the topic a bit, because there is a lot more that I want Dr. Bertrand to get into with us right after this break.
Oh, and if they say convenience can make a big difference, then you can trust me. I know just where you should be. That is JP Mega. One-stop shopping, Dominica, digga. You could be shopping and having fun. Shop with your daughter or with your son. Shop dedicated to everyone. What a happy place. Oh, JP Mega. One-stop shopping, Dominica, digga. You could be shopping and having fun. Shop with your shop dedicated to everyone. What a happy place. What a happy place. Purchase 6 or more any item and you automatically qualify for discounts. Check us out at the Mega Store in Funko. Lots of parking on Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. On Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And on Sundays from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. JP Mega, the best family shopping experience.
Jolly's Pharmacy is bringing vibes to health with Health Vibes. Each and every Wednesday from 10 to 11:30 a.m. with your hosts Trudy Christian and co-hosts pharmacists Jacinta Fagan and Leona Jeremiah. Education, information, and a bit of humor, and not forgetting lots of vibes. Jolly's Pharmacy is bringing health and vibes together with Health Vibes. So be sure to tune in each and every Wednesday on Q95 from 10 to 11:30 a.m. Jolly's Pharmacy, leading the way in healthcare.
Introducing Jolly's Pharmacy, brand new website, www.jollies.tm. It's your time to jump the line. Shop now at jollies.tm and have your items delivered in the comfort of your office. No more standing in line. No need to use your lunch hour to shop. Hassle-free shopping, safe and secure. Jollies.tm features rush delivery, 1 hour. In-store pickup, regular delivery, 5 p.m. Cut-off time, 4 p.m. It's your time to jump the line. www.jollies.tm. Jollies Pharmacy, leading the way in healthcare. healthcare, in healthcare. Woke up this morning feeling missing. I had big intentions to call it sick, but I end up in Jolly's pharmacy. And down in the street, Jolly's fix up my immune system. Got me feeling fit and strong. Now I'm ready to work and it on any mission. If you see me walking, Jolly's pharmacy is number one. Jolly's walking. We cater for everyone. Jolly's walking. The immune system. Jolly's walking. Yo, Dominic is the white father box. Whenever I'm in town and I'm feeling down, I head to Jolly's Pharmacy. They boost me up real quick. Jolly's Pharmacy, leading them in healthcare.
And we are back. This is Health Vibes, Jolly's Health Vibes here on Q95 FM. We're in studio with Dr. Bertrand, who is a nutritionist, and we'll be talking about children and their nutritional needs as we start focusing on our young people getting back into the classroom and how is it to keep them healthy. And we've been getting a lot of tidbits. Dr. Bertrand, I think before the break, the one about vitamin C was particularly instructive, yes, and eye-opening, because so many people had a different concept about vitamin C than you just gave them. But I wanted to shift a little bit now into this whole concept of body size of children, people either feeling that their child or not just feeling, or it might have been because weight is tracked with the children's visits to their health professionals or to the health center. So children being felt to be or being determined to be underweight, and also children being determined to be overweight. So the whole concept of weight management for children, how do we align everything we've been talking about nutrition wise with our weight management of our children? Underweight, overweight, which is where I think maybe the problem is greater. How do we think of that in terms of our nutritional planning?
I want to preface that by saying, and the nurses may not be happy I'm saying that, but the growth charts are just a standard to match against.
Yeah.
It may mean something to you, but a bigger picture might be what you need to consider, right? For example, the bigger picture might be that you are Big Grace. So considering that you come from families who are tall and larger in terms of body size and roundness, care has to be taken to the conversation that needs to be had. An assessment needs to be, done in terms of what does the child eat at home. Do we need to focus on the child eating per se and not just the fact that the child is a bigger child? The same thing happens with if the child is a smaller child. In immune keep it. Like you have children that's just a small. So that means that you have to look and see, is it a family thing or genetics thing that the child is small and not just under eating or not, eating the way that, you expect the child to eat. So what needs to happen, is, again, an assessment. That's where dietitian and nutritionist comes in, do a 24-hour, do an assessment in terms of what is that child eating. Is that child meeting her needs for that stage? And we're talking about the protein and the healthy fats and the vitamins and so on. That's what needs to be looked at closely, not necessarily the fact that the child is not, going in alignment with the chart.
Okay.
In background, if it's not going in alignment with the chart, let's see if there's something that we need to pay attention to. Whereas it could just be a simple thing as, okay, it's a big child, okay, it's a small child, and the child is even eating better than somebody who's, aligned with that chart. So we have to be careful with those charts. In terms of, again, nourishing children, and in terms of body image and sizes, some of the things I highlighted previously comes into consideration in terms of how involved is that child, and we're talking about older children, especially at that stage, how involved is that child in preparation at home? There are children who don't even see how certain things are cooking. Like, for example, a child may not even know that a popcorn needs to be popped, right? So simple things as that is involving a child in cooking and influencing what they, may or may not refuse. other things again that I highlighted: eating as a family, and then there is a non-nutrition aspect, as in physical activity. A child wants more when the child is physically active, right? So, and again, that energy balance, getting out energy, burning some of that fat, using up some of that sugar to influence how, your, adiposity, or how much fat you deposit in your body. Those things need to be considered, closely with a physician or nutrition specialist in terms of children and their body image. It's not just those chats.
No, if there's a child, you have a child who is a picky eater. We did speak about food aversions a little earlier on, but a picky eater, or the child often is refusing food, and the parent is saying the child's appetite is insufficient. The child doesn't have good appetite. I mean, everybody else in the house is eating, and the child is just refusing food at all times. It's not even just about aversion. It's just, just not eating, and the appetite is not sufficient. And then people say things as it relates to boosting appetite. Should the child maybe get something to increase their appetite? When would you take that sort of decision as a parent? What would you really need to see to determine this child needs an appetite booster? This child needs to eat more for sure. I really need to go and get an appetite booster for that child. What would make you take that type of?
There are situations, and again, we're dealing with children. I know it's not always right. I know it's a challenge with their meals and their feeding and so on. But in terms of introduction of appetite booster, there are conditions and there are situations in which a child would definitely need an appetite booster, and scientifically it does work. An appetite booster, for example, if a child has some sort of illness where the appetite would be compromised, like for example cancer, even asthma can affect a child's appetite. So an appetite booster would be beneficial in that regard. In terms of mood, for example, a child has gone through some loss, or just not feeling right in terms of the mood or emotions, an appetite booster can become beneficial in that regard.
Because there might be a psychological reason why the appetite is low. Okay.
There's also issues of eating disorders. So there is restrictive eating. There is in teenagers we see things like anorexia, bulimia. There is body image, again impact on eating. So there is this psychological impact on eating. So in these cases you can introduce an appetite booster. So again, the illness, the illness that could lead to malnutrition, the psychological illnesses, again, appetite booster would work in that regard. Yeah.
The concept of appetite boosting is interesting to me particularly, because when I was little, when I was below 5, I was felt to not have good appetite. So my father at the time, he passed away when I was 5, but he was concerned she's not eating enough, she's not eating enough. And I would refuse food a lot. I would come home with any snack I was given, I'm not eating it, and so on. And things changed drastically thereafter, because for my entire life thereafter I struggled with weight management, being overweight, so it's just interesting, this idea of something is wrong, the child is not eating, and parents may be concerned, and then it might resolve itself. It might, as you're saying, it might need something to boost that appetite. But it's just interesting, because children are so varied and different in that regard. So different. Dr. Bertrand, let us open the lines. Of course, we are open to our audience interacting with the nutritionist here. If you would like to call and make a contribution, ask a question. Our numbers are 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, or 616-4257. If you're trying to reach us and you're overseas, the number you need to call is 305-432-9624. So we're talking children's nutritional needs and children and their eating habits here on the program. Dr. Bertrand, a big issue is now childhood obesity being felt to really be a health crisis. And I know from the perspective of the Ministry of Health, a lot of planning and thought is going into curbing childhood obesity in terms of school feeding programs and different policies being made for schools as it relates to that issue. If a child is overweight, obese, what is the nutritional guide or pathway, or what should be considered to remedy that situation for the child? How can the child, or how can you as the parent start thinking about changing what's going on with the child at that stage?
Okay, very good question. And again, as with everything I've spoken about today, there's always some cautions to take into consideration. You can just look at a child because a child is big or on the fatter side of body image and be like, oh, that's an obese child, that's a big child, that child is obese. There are measurements for obesity, and that will help you determine, okay, that child is obese. And why we need to pay attention to this is that obesity, now considered a disease, is because the fact that it may lead to other risks in terms of the child's life. So that is the thinking I want to encourage. Not because a child is fat, you might be like, oh, the child is obese. Not everybody that's fat is obese. Okay. So the other thing is using the right measurements, and often we get consumed in this BMI, body mass index.
Very controversial.
Weight divided by, what is it? Height. Again, it's a very erroneous way of measuring obesity. It has been used, it's accepted, but more and more in science, in the scientific world, there is a sort of disregard of this BMI. All this is just caution I need to share with the public. Don't weigh yourselves and measure or calculate your BMI and just be like, okay, I'm obese or I'm underweight. There is more physical assessments to be done that could help you determine your healthfulness or your risks. Right, and that's where the whole obesity thing comes in. The more obese a person is, and is rightly obese or rightly assessed to be obese, then we know that this person is at risk for heart disease, other conditions as well. There are better measurements for obesity. There is, what we know regard heavily in terms of the waist circumference. So there is, the waist circumference measurements. Even beyond that, there is the waist to hip ratio.
Okay.
And there are things, there are, I guess, guidelines that you can match it against to determine that, okay, well, if I'm, my waist to hip ratio, if it's more than 1 as a man, that means I'm at a higher risk. If it's more than 0.8 as a woman, then that means I'm at a higher risk. So these things are what we need to be paying attention to, and not this BMI, because it could cause a lot of problem. Because even a tall person that is muscular and athlete might be calculated to be an obese person when that person is tall and just really athletic, right? So we have to be careful when we assign in obese labels. In terms of managing obesity, it's very complex, right? Because obesity, and in terms of the causes, is still being studied. It is multifactorial. So we're speaking about, again, genetics. Is that child from a family where, people are on the smaller side or on the larger side in terms of body image? We're speaking about, level of physical activity that child engages in. We're speaking about socioeconomic factors that would have raised that child, how much access to, healthy foods that the mother has. And often the lack of monies could lead to unhealthier eating that could lead to more fat being deposited in our abdominal region. So other factors that comes into consideration is policies that are in place. Again, from the governmental perspective, are the governments protecting us from, unhealthy foods within our school food environment? That is something that needs to be considered. We have to look at, our health status, for example. So it's many, many things when we have to look at, managing obesity. Health status are there any other comorbidities that the child is facing that is causing that, adiposity or that fatness? Are there any other, things that need to be considered? We also want to look at, and the obvious in my field, we want to look at nutrition. And then nutrition, you want to consider, again, energy in, energy out. So the first, we want to get physical activity out of the way. Is that child engaging in adequate physical activity? Then yes. Then we look at, nutrients in terms of like how much saturated fat is that child, eating in terms of what they eat for meals and snack. And when we speak about saturated fats, we want to think about things like frying foods. Culturally, we love fried foods. The chicken bite there, the baked
Bakes.
sides there, the
Fried plantain.
We love it, but sparingly, right? And saturated fats, again, is just so dominant in the things that we tend to eat. So we're looking at meats. I have noticed that pork and beef, their consumption has decreased. I don't know if it's because of finance, but pork and beef, they have decreased. But again, somebody who eats a lot of pork and beef, somebody who eats chicken along with the skin, and chicken is the dominant meat on the plate. Somebody who eats a lot of baked foods. And when I say baked foods, it's twofold. I'm talking about the baked foods, like there's the baked casseroles, and I'm talking about the baked foods like the bread and the cookies. And
Okay.
when I talk about saturated fats, I am also talking about the processed foods. Like there are some people, they wouldn't eat bread if it doesn't have something to put in the bread. Like we're talking about salami, we're talking about corned beef, we're talking about sausages. In terms of, again, that's why nutrition comes in. So the saturated fats, and then the sugar. The sweetened beverages that are available, for the child at home, the sweetened beverages that are available for the child at school in different environments. So all these would be related to nutrition that could affect a child's, designation as an obese child. But beyond that, it goes to, as I mentioned before, environmental factors, genetical factors, political factors, child's behavior. So it's many, many factors that need to be taken into consideration in that regard.
Okay, so we have gone through the whole array of the factors. Can a child or can a parent engage a nutritionist for a nutritional plan for a child who is falling into the category of being overweight, and the parent wants to reverse that?
Certainly.
Okay.
There are just persons that I know in Dominica, and I will just call their names really. There's Coralie Thomas. I think she's with the Ministry of Education. I believe there's a Shillingford with health promotion. And there are other key persons that have blazed the trail, like Eleanor Lambert. There is Marynice Teat. There is what's that nurse? Oh, that nurse from St. Jude, what's her name? I will
forget the name.
Oh my God.
That's
So
why.
there are people who are blazing the trail, and even, consulting with them to get some sort of advice as to what are the better things to give my child if I'm trying to avoid obesity from the nutrition perspective. Because like I said, it goes beyond that.
Okay, so yeah, I think and that's good advice, because sometimes the parent may need help, and so if we are able to reach out to somebody who is well informed and has experience, is educated in terms of nutrition, to get that help, because it might be an issue that the parent cannot face alone. So I'm happy that you've mentioned the resources that are available, and parents know that there is a pathway for help. We are almost at the end of the program. We do have our pharmacist on the line. She was unable to be with us in studio this morning. That's Leona. Jeremiah was supposed to be in studio with us, but she was unable to be. So we do have her on the line. Leona, good morning to you.
Good morning, Trudy, and good morning as well to all our listeners and our guests. I got to hear quite a bit of the show, and the information was truly invaluable.
Right. Yes. Dr. Bertrand has been giving us quite a bit of information. And as usual, we wanted to have a bit of the pharmacy part of things on this particular topic. We, of course, always are aware that there are quite a few things that we may have discussed that Jolly's Pharmacy does have available for, whatever it is that we would have discussed. So Leon, I just wanted us to go through that with you in the last minutes that we have here on the show.
Of course. So, with the information that we learned today, we learned a lot about children's nutrition, the parameters that we can use to measure. Now, like Doctor said, there's a lot of the nutrients and the minerals that children need they can get from their foods. Now, sometimes we may need to add added supplementation if needs be. Now, in some of the forms that we have available, I know we know this line, I know we know this brand because it's a household name, that's Halle Barrage. So we have the Halle Barrage line of products that are geared towards children to boost them up overall, and then some of the items that can also do specific needs. So before I quite go into it, I will note that when we're talking about children, we mentioned they are picky eaters and all of these things. So when it comes to children's vitamins, we often have them in different forms. So we have the gummies for those who are at that stage where they've decided they hate medicine, and to them, all medicines are in liquid form. And that's how a lot of children see it. So we have the gummies for those from the ages of 2 to 12 who may more particular something to suck on or chew on. And then we also have the vitamins available in the liquid form. So for instance, we have the Halle Barrage Baby and Toddler Multivitamin, and use that for everyday overall health. And that can be used from 1 month and up. And they'll get the range of vitamins that they need in there. And of course, dosing will be based on the age, and that's always readily available on the packaging. And something that I have to note for parents, dosing parameters. That's very important when we're talking about children, because most times on any given product, you'll see adult dosing and you'll just see adult. It doesn't say adult 20 to 30 or adult 45 to 55, nothing like that. But for children, the body is still growing, the body is developing, there's different things happening all the way up to adulthood, and there are more of the rapidly growing humans in terms of size. We've reached our peak height. I'm at my peak height. If anything, I will be getting shorter. So for children, we want to make sure that we follow the dosing schedules for their age ranges. So a lot of times when you have multiple children, you just buy a multivite and you just give the same amount to all your children. And we want to basically to keep you from avoid you from doing those things. You need to read through or speak to your pharmacist. So for instance, with the baby and toddler, you get a range from about 1 month up to toddler stages. And for persons that don't want to buy multiple stuff, like there's the Halle Barrage multivitamin drops in the day just for babies, so 4 to 24 months. If you have a baby, you do this, and that's fine. It's easier for dosing. If you have a baby and a toddler, then you could get the baby and toddler. You can get them from the same container. It will just be different dosing because of their different ages. And I say this because a lot of times people come in for prescription medication, and their child was taking 5 meals last month, and they went to the doctor, and now we're telling them 8 meals, and they think we just, telling them 8 meals, and they decide, you know what, it was 5 meals, I'm going to give 5 meals. children grow and to amount of what they need in terms of those minerals, vitamins, supplements, medication, all changes. One of the things that doctor mentioned, even with the vitamin C and all those things, what you might notice, and a lot of times we get that question, so to address the general public, when it comes to iron and children, it's something that needs to be determined by the healthcare professional. So a lot of times people come in and they say, I want some iron for my toddler, or I want a multivitamin with iron. You'll notice that most multivitamins for children do not have iron in there. So it's not that, it's something that they get from their foods in enough amounts at their ages. If a doctor does run tests, and that is things that will be done, run tests and decide that there is some iron deficiency, they will then prescribe iron in the exact amounts that the child needs based on their levels. Right? So don't go over the counter asking for iron tablets that are also fit for your children.
All right.
Okay? Yeah, but you can take us in the store. The entire Harley Barrage line is there for us to peruse. If there's children that may have some calcium deficiencies, I think that's the best tasting gummy. It's the calcium gummies that we have, and then we have the ones with omega-3s for your children.
Yes, doctor spoke about
cod liver oil. Right.
Doctor spoke about omega-3s.
Yes, some of that omega-3 in there.
Leona, what about vitamin D? Anything vitamin D, strictly not a multivitamin, but vitamin D specifically?
That's a very big one, I will say, especially because it's not just the adults. Right now, so a lot of people are taking vitamin D because a lot of us are either deficient or our levels are low, and there are tests that we even have a at-home test kit that you can use to see what your vitamin D levels are like.
Ah, okay.
Doctor. Right. So for the children, they need vitamin D like we do. Their amounts may be different, but they also need vitamin D. Now, right now we're in a stage where a lot of children prefer to be online, on their tablets, inside the house, and we may be lacking some sunlight exposure. We're not outside as much as before, climbing the trees. And so our vitamin D, in terms of being in the sun to have absorption, can also be lowered. And of course, we're dark skinned, so even that makes absorption a bit more difficult for us, right?
Right.
So we have vitamin D supplementation for children in liquid format.
Okay.
Yes. So it makes it available for dosages for them, as well as for them to be able to swallow. So it is available and it's readily prescribed too for children who may need that extra boost of vitamin D.
Okay. And then, Leona, you did mention the at-home test kit for vitamin D level. So that's available at the pharmacy?
That's available on the OTC shelf. So you can always check in and ask about it. A lot of us would benefit from it. Definitely.
Okay, so that's an interesting product that our listeners should be aware that is available at Jolly's Pharmacy, because I have done vitamin D test before, but at a lab, so I wasn't aware that there is an over-the-counter option to check your vitamin D level. So that's important too. And Leona, one last question, because we are past our time. We need to wrap up, but one last question as it relates to appetite boosting. I know that there is a product that is often requested at the pharmacy for that. What is it?
Right. So in terms of appetite boosting, we have the Peridavites. And if you don't know Peridavites, if you don't know Perry, I don't know, because we've been talking about Perry the dog.
Perry the dog.
And we push this product because it is Neanderthal heart and it really is effective when it comes to boosting children's appetite. So it's something that we manufacture as a company.
Locally, yeah.
Yes, locally. And with the Peridavites, you get a good boost of B vitamins for the kids. And what the B vitamins do is they help with energy, and they also help to regulate your appetite. So if you have a child who is sluggish, they're not eating well, and all of these things. And like Doctor said, you have to also know your parameters. So sometimes we just figure the child not eating as much as me, and that means they're not eating well enough. But if you do know that your child has had an appetite decrease, or if it is that your doctor told you that your child needs to put on some more weight, then that is one of the things that can help. One of the things I'd like to tell our listeners, though, we have two types. So we have the Peridivite plain one, and then we have the Peridivite with iron. Again, we do with iron when we know that our child needs iron, and we only know that our child needs iron by confirming with their pediatrician or their doctor after they've run tests, determine if the child is indeed iron deficient, maybe if the child is anemic. All of these things can be beneficial. So we always check first before we give iron.
Okay. All right. That's good information. Leona, thank you so much. I know you would normally have been in studio with us, but you weren't able to do so. So I thank you so much for giving us the lowdown on the pharmacy aspect over the phone. Thank you so much.
I'm glad to be here. Sharing the information with you all. I would just like to share only information. So I will leave myself and my flu out of the studio today.
Yes, Leona.
It was a very great program, very interesting information. And of course, one thing I want to leave our listeners with is that, it really starts from childhood. I always say we introduce our children to sugar, we introduce our children to all of these things. So when their eating habits become what they are, at 8 and 9, we have to take some part of that, so we can control what it is that you can control what it is that your children eat from birth, how healthily they eat, how broad of a plate they have, and of course children who have pickiness. But if you set that foundation from small stages, then it grows with them, and that's what we want for our children and their health.
Thank you, Leona. So we will be on air maybe in 2 weeks. So we will meet then. All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, take care.
Yes. So Dr. Leona just gave, some of the pharmacy details. She left with a message about, parents and influencing food. I do want to say sometimes, and this is a flip side, I don't know if I should end on this controversial point, but sometimes parents do try their best. Like I know, for instance, my mother tried her best to make me, to have me enjoy certain things. And I am a big adult who knows better, and I don't like okra. I don't eat avocado. I don't, and yes. So I do know sometimes parents try,
I agree.
and for some reason, there are certain foods and certain varieties of foods that, children just decide they don't like, which I don't know. I think maybe a little study, can be done, or maybe there is research. I just need to look it
There is a
up.
lot of research. Children are largely researched because their minds is just so difficult to influence eating among them. And there's so many factors influencing their eating. So whereas there's a lot of evidence as to things that can be done in management and altering, eating, there's still a lot to be done because children's minds, it's still developing and a lot can't be determined. So I agree with what you say.
Dr. Bertrand, I would like to thank you for joining us here on the program. It's actually 11:39 a.m. Wednesday morning. We have reached the end. We have surpassed our time here on Health Vibes. But Dr. Bertrand, it was great having you on. And I do wish to extend an open invitation to you for another time, maybe on another topic that you would like to come on. But I do thank you for your time. Is there any way that anybody can contact you if if they would need or any sort of nutritionist advice, or what is your work environment for the listeners, so the listeners know where they can possibly see Dr. Bertrand to get nutritional advice if they want to go that way, or under what auspices do you work?
Okay, so I am a nutritionist with the Ministry of Health. So currently, different day, different health center. So, for example, tomorrow I'm in Castle Bruce.
Okay.
And I know parents have been taking advantage of that, persons, adults, everybody, and this is good. But in time to come, there will be more access to me on a private
Level, okay.
level. I do see people privately already, but more there will be a bigger and greater access to me on
Mm-hmm.
a private level. But as for now, it's in the health center, different day, different health center.
Okay.
And it's as easy as going to your health center and asking, being assessed by the nurses or being assessed by a doctor and being referred to me, or just going there and asking to see me if it's something
Okay,
that I just
okay.
want to eat healthy. I don't have a disease or anything. I just
Want to eat healthily, right.
At this point, is health center
Health centers,
or
okay.
health fairs.
Oh, health fairs. Okay, so you can look out for Dr. Bertrand at your health center when she comes along. Cassie Bruce, people of the East. She said tomorrow she's in Cassie Bruce. All right. But Dr. Bertrand, once again, thank you.
Welcome.
And to all our listeners, we're signing off here from Health Vibes. And we look forward to you joining us next week for another episode of the Health Talk Show with a lot of vibes. Until then, do take care and have a
Thank you.
good week. Bye-bye.
Thanks, listeners.
Oh, and if they say convenience can make a big difference, then you can trust me. I know just where you should be. That is JP Mega. The one-stop shopping Dominica, nigga. You could be shopping and having fun. Shop with your daughter, with your social. Dedicated to everyone. What a happy place. Oh, JP Mega. The one-stop shopping Dominica. You could be shopping and having fun. Shopping along. Dedicated to everyone. What a happy place. Oh, what a happy place. Purchase 6 or more any item and you automatically qualify for discounts. Check us out at the Mega Store in Fonkwole, where there's lots of parking on Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. On Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on Sundays from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. JP Mega, the best family shopping experience.
Easy Ride.